Hello and welcome to the 140th episode of Fur, Fins, and Feathers. Believe it or not, but we have achieved 140 shows and our viewership is expanding throughout New England and into many parts of the United States. Today our guest is Nona Maiorano, and she is from Rehoboth, Massachusetts, and she is going to talk about the wonderful world of horses.
Right.
Welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm glad to have you we've looked everywhere, and then we found you, and I'm very happy.
And there I was, right under your nose.
Exactly, not far from us.
No.
Talk about, how did you get involved with horses?
Well, at the age of 2 years old, my uncle had a pony, and my father put me on it, and I fell asleep on him, and he couldn't get me off. So Dad took the pony home, and I had that pony till I was about 8 years old. Dad said he used to throw me onto the ground all the time, and I'd clamber right back up on there. And that's where I got labeled by him that my determination was rather frightening. So, and you know what's interesting, because no one in my family rode horses at all. So, or in my immediate family, I should say. I found out later some of my ancestors that I didn't know rode. But so no one, my mom, dad, they didn't, they were like, what is it with this kid? And then at around 10 years old, I started to take formal lessons because I was very fortunate that down the street from me there was a farm, Foxley Farm, and I could go walk and take my lessons there, earn some of my money for riding. At the time, Foxley Farm ran a polo club. So polo horses, a polo rider must have two horses because one gets tired and then you've got to walk the other one out. So the people that walk the horses for the polo players is called a chucker. So I used to chuck for my money to pay for my lessons. So I did that through college, and then when I was in college, I couldn't own a horse, so I kept taking lessons. And I graduated college. First thing I did is go off and buy my first horse that I took to pre-St. George level. And then I had him 19 years, and then I went on and bought another horse. I thought about quitting, and then I said, oh, is this what people do that don't have a horse? I didn't know how to live without one. So I went and I found another horse, and I just retired him. I've had him 20 years, and I brought him to Grand Prix level. And now I just 2 years ago bought a Spanish horse, and he's in training with me now. He's a young Spanish horse. So if you take those numbers, I'm kind of old.
But it keeps you active.
It keeps me healthy, keeps me active, and keeps me strong. This July I'll be 64, and I don't behave like it, and I don't act like it. So that's more important, that I don't act like it. I don't let the old lady in. But I don't know a life without horses, and I think, although I can teach other disciplines, I started with some jumping, I did eventing, but the last 43 years has been dedicated to the art of dressage. And I kind of stay in my lane, and I'm a freelance teacher. I'll travel to teach people and that have their own horse. And I'm also a resident trainer at a little boutique barn in Rehoboth, Broad Places. And I'm privileged to be there and help some people there. They can truck into me there, or if you board there, you would take lessons with me. But I think the greatest privilege I have in this is horses are not learning to ride horses just for the sake of riding horses. If you do horses correctly, they will engage you to be a better person, they will humble you, and hopefully you will meet a community of other people of like-mindedness to create great human bonds. So I think many times when people come to me to learn to ride, they've come to me to find a medium. The medium is the horse, by which we as a village come together to learn just to be better humans. I think most animals can do that. Dogs can do it for sure. But there's something about a horse, because you get on it and you become part of its body. There's something about the synchronicity of that and the exchange of energy that if it's done right and well, I think it changes you very profoundly as a human being. I know all the horses I have taught and trained and the clients and helped them, they made me a much better person, kinder, more compassionate. I try to find, if there's not one way to do it, is how do I convince this beautiful animal of what I want, not from a human's perspective, but from its perspective. So it's expanded how I look at things, how I maybe go about anything, not just my perspective. How do I open up my perspective to be a teacher that I connect with how you process something, to get to you to understand how to do this art form that is by feel and by touch. So it's great. I think I've been very privileged to have this in my life, and I don't know how to live without it. I'm an addict.
Talk about training.
Training, okay.
How do you train a horse?
It takes, well, for my discipline, it takes quite a bit of time, because for dressage, the horse is a bit of a ballerina.
What is dressage?
Dressage comes from the French word dresser, means to teach. At the lower levels, in the United States, there are 5 levels in the beginning, which is training level, first level, second, third, and fourth level. Then the international levels, which we call the FEI levels, which comes from Fédération Équestrienne Internationale. And those levels are Prix St. George, Intermediaire 1 and 2, and the Grand Prix. And under the Grand Prix, there's the Grand Prix Special, there's the Grand Prix Freestyle, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, when you say Grand Prix, you have brought the horse to the maximum of our sport, what we expect the horse to do in what we call movements. Now, these movements are physics. And they were first developed way back from the days of Xenophon, when they were training them to pull chariots and for war. These movements, these physics, are a systematic way of shaping the horse's body so that it carries itself independent of you. But for it to be independent of you, you must have the skill to be independent of it in self-carriage, and then the two of you together sync in synergy, and it looks like a beautiful dance. If it's done well, it looks like the rider isn't doing anything. Although I will tell you, when I'm up there, I'm juggling molecules in a moment. It's beautiful, and it is the magic carpet ride. It is being Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire together, And the freestyle in competition was the thing that drew me, because I have a little bit of a musical background, and we ride to music. So that's pretty much what dressage is and where it came from. For modern day, to take the physics of the training of the body of the horse to its maximum flexibility, fluidity, and cadence, to get to those with those physics, well, what do you do with it, right? We're not going to war anymore. So to have a show, what we did at certain levels, certain physics are to be shown. In other words, there is one walk, one trot, and one canter, which are the natural gaits of a horse. So at training level, I expect a working trot, a working walk, and a working canter. Now that sounds simple, but it's very hard to train. So it takes time. It just takes time, and it's a process. And I think I told you prior, a lot of people say, oh, dressage, well, it can't be that hard. There's no jumps, there's no barrels to race, there's no cows to pen. It's much harder than that. You are looking to be in constant total energy without controlling the horse, but influencing the horse. So when I ride, I don't look to control the horse. I want to influence his movements to maximize the beauty of who he is.
Who can do it?
People that stay at it for a very long time
I'm talking about age-wise.
I think any age you any age can, but it is an athletic endeavor. So I would say, if you're looking to ride a Grand Prix, you need to start where your body can kind of maximize that ability. Now, if you're a little bit older person and you say, well, this is something that's been my dream and I'd love to do it, well, there's ways to go about it. I mean, you can buy a trained horse and work with a trainer to keep the horse fit while you learn it with the horse, because a horse can teach you too. So, but you need to keep the horse in good condition to be able to stay there. But typically, it takes a long time to learn the sport. The Spanish Riding School, which is the mecca of us, says it takes 10 years to learn the movements, the physics, and then another 10 years as to why and when you execute them. So you're looking at a good piece of life to if you want to ride this as an art form.
What ages are your students?
Now that's a good question, Brian, because I got them all over. I have a young lady that I consider a protege. She came to me at 12. She's 13. This young woman is just mentally geared towards it. She has an excellent sense of feel, and this is near and dear to your heart. A lot of her good sense of feel in the hands with the reins came from her training with dogs on the leash. So the two things kind of complement each other. I was so impressed because this young woman, she works with her dog too, very proficient with animals and but then I have a lot of, I've got young women, in my mind they're young, in their 40s, and I've had some students right now that are in their 70s. So it's a plethora.
And they're not, they continue to do it.
They continue to do it. Now, the reality is, at what level they will get, well, that's determined on physical ability, time, and unfortunately, in this sport, some of it's money, But
it's an expensive sport.
It is, but I'm a woman of very humble means. I'm a former postal employee. I never did this as my job, by the way. This was always my passion. So some people that do it as a job, it's a little bit more compromising for them because they still have to run a farm, feed the horses, run schooling programs. I can be a little bit more lofty in that I kept a job and I studied purely this art form for me. So I think that's what makes me a unicorn as a teacher, because I didn't study this to pass it on to someone else. I studied this because I resonate with it. It's my big jolly. I mean, I love this. This is what I love to do. So I kept a full-time job and attained that level of riding. So when people always ask me, well, I'd love to ride like you, and I'm like, well, you could have, but when you were having Christmas, I was riding. When you were having Thanksgiving, I was riding. When you were having children and a family, I was riding. So it is that kind of commitment to do this. So depending on the commitment, the time, and the ability is really what people have to come into the sport being realistic of.
Nona, where do you ride?
I have my own arena at home. The dressage arena is called a menage. And there's letters around it which come from German and blah, blah, blah. They don't make any sense. They're not in order. The first thing my young student said to me, she goes, these aren't in order. It's not ABC. I said, no, not that. But I have my menage at home. I have a turnout at home. And then I throw my horse in the trailer and take him all over. I took him to Florida, too, this year. So wherever I can do it, I do it.
All over the country?
Well, I haven't been all over the country Yet, right. Because I had to stay home for a job. But many people that do it professionally do travel all over the country. But as I said, Now, some teachers, you go out, you will see that they're accredited with the New England Dressage or a U.S. Dressage Federation of having their gold medal, their bronze medal, or their silver. I never attained those only because I had a job. So what I did do was train as hard as if I were going to go to the Olympics. So I invested my time and money to train me. And now that I retired from my job, I'm sought after for my skill and my knowledge.
Where do your students come from?
I have some in Maine, Connecticut, here in Rehoboth. And you know, the pandemic did something interesting. With people kind of not interacting, although horses, we were all outside, so people still wanted to keep riding and having their lessons. I'm like, geez, I thought I would get downtime here. But there's a little mechanism out. It is called a pivo, and it's a tiny robot that you put on a tripod, like your film cameras here, and you download an app onto your phone, and it connects Bluetooth-wise to this mechanism, and you can choose face or body or horse, and it follows the horse. So my students, as long as they have either a hotspot or Wi-Fi, can send me a link, and I can sit home and have them on the TV and teach them. So I can have people anywhere to teach now. And they don't have to pay me for travel for that. So I give them a discount.
But your students are not just relegated to Rehoboth.
No, they are not. No. I have a long-time one that lives in Connecticut. And actually I was out teaching in Connecticut for quite some time. It's interesting with being a dressage instructor. I find that people will stay with me. I have some that have been with me 14 years, 15 years, and then some will only stay with me a little while. Because to stay with me as an instructor, I'm not just going to let you do things robotically and do it as the physics. I want you to know why you're doing it and how it affects the horse. And as much as I love the sport of dressage, I believe in horsemanship first. Meaning, Brian, I will not sacrifice the horse's well-being for an agenda. So if somebody's very geared to show and they're very geared to win ribbons and this and that at the cost of the horse's well-being, and I mean mentally as well, not just physically, I won't do it. So that's kind of how people come and go, I think, with me. And the ones that do stay with me, they win.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Where, now you teach professionally.
Yes, I do. I do.
And you have students from, you're telling me, from all over.
From all over the place, yes. Usually what happens with me is...
More women than men?
Yes, but I have to tell you, not in Europe, but in the United States, my sport attracts more women than men. Now, Europe, it's a little bit more open as far as the United States has the, what do we want to call it? Maybe the enigma of the Western cowboy. So men associate, I find American men associate riding with being a cowboy. But there are many fine riders, such as Napoleon, George Washington, fine men riders that were basically dressage riders. But it's kind of hard to get past that in America. So you see a lot of, men, there'll be a few men, but I have to tell you, the men that I do find come to the sport usually are very gifted, and they're really wonderful to work with.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
You also love dogs.
I do. I love all animals. I don't like, I listened to Daisy's interview with you, Daisy Pitmore, and I love Daisy. But when she talked about how she had all these animals, but not snakes, I hate snakes. So and I don't like.
I'm not in love with them either.
I don't like snakes, and I don't like reptiles. But every pretty much animal I respect that they're on our planet for reasons, and that I do. But I do love animals. My mother used to call me Ellie Mae Clampett when I was a kid. So, but I was telling you, I have a Portuguese water dog that I waited 23 years to get, because when I was working, I did not want to get a dog because I really wanted to enjoy having a dog, not just have a dog. I wanted to enjoy him. And I plotted and plotted, and I used to have a customer that would come into the post office. He was pretty versed in the breeds of dogs, so we would discuss them. And way before the Obamas ever had Portuguese water dogs, I knew about them. And I said, that's what I want. So my husband wasn't too thrilled with me, but now he loves him more than, I think he like him more than he likes me. So, but Fergus is our family, my little boy that I never had, and he's had to learn to be in the barn. Sometimes I think he's a little conflicted because I had him in the barn as a puppy, so I have to teach him not to eat hay and then vomit. That's not fun. Still having a problem with that. But yes, I do. I love dogs. I have my kitty actually just passed away. I had a beautiful rescue cat, but she has a job, and she would catch all my mice. So
Now, what is your dog's job? You told me earlier that
everything has to have a job.
Every job has to have everything.
If you're in my house, you've got a job. Nobody's laying around in my house. My dog's job is to be a good dog first, and to be our family member that is respectful and polite, but loving. So that's his job, and he does it pretty darn well. I'm pretty pleased with him. Although I've got to tell you, the best part with him is he thinks that when I hook my donkey up to the cart, that it's his Uber ride. He likes to ride in the cart. So I might have to make him, if I ever get time enough to take my donkey to a driving event, they have a class for a best carriage dog. He might just have to do that.
Talk about your donkey.
My donkey. So why do I even have a donkey? Okay. So my other horse that I had after the one horse I had from college, the one I just retired that I took to Grand Prix, I bought this horse from a very, very beautiful person. She's very, very wealthy. And at the time when I went to buy this horse, I didn't have the full amount of money. But she liked my riding, and she felt that she wanted this horse to be with me. So she accommodated what I had to offer for money on a condition. And it was that my horse, this horse Chocolat that I bought, does not have to live alone. So I had Chocolat about 5 years. And I seen every time I brought him home from winter boarding, because I would leave home and bring him to a boarding facility for winter, because you can't ride out in the ice and snow. I'd bring him home. He'd be in the corner all depressed. And I remembered my promise. But I didn't want to get a goat, because people say, why don't you get a goat? Why don't you get some sheep? Well, I'll tell you what goats do. They eat your saddle. And my saddle's pretty pricey. So I'd be like, well, I'd have to cook that goat if he ate my saddle. So I said, you know what? What about a donkey? So I had met someone in Florida that had rescued a donkey from a circus. And I fell in love with him. But he wouldn't sell me that donkey. So I was turning 50 years old, and my husband said, do you want your jackass to buy you a jackass? And I said, yes, I do. So we went out and went looking, and I found Max out in Connecticut. He was only about 2 years old, never even had a halter on him. That should have been on video, getting him in the trailer. That would have went viral. It was a scream. Anyway, I got him home and kept working with him and worked with him. And you could actually put him in your lap almost. He's a miniature donkey. He's small. He's a burra. And he's my horse's companion. So that's why I got him. And then I said, you gotta have a job. So I trained him in the cart. And he's got a really pretty cart. And he's pretty fancy. He knows he knows his gee and yaw and rein back, and he can drive through the cones. He's cool.
And how old is he?
Right now, let's see, he was about 2.5 when I got him. Excuse me, I'd say he's about 13. I've had him about, he's about 13. I've had, well, maybe he's 15. I've had him about 13 years. I'd say he's 15. He's about 15, but he's in the prime of his life. They live till they're about 30.
In good health?
Yes, yes. And he's got the Sicilian donkey hairdo, by the way. So this is great, because I do believe that sometimes we do start to look like our animals, because my dog's hair and mine are the same. And that donkey and I, yeah, a little bit, so.
For someone who is maybe for a child or a little older who might be interested in learning about horses, what advice would you give them?
That's beautiful, because recently I've had a second generation come to me from a young woman I had taught out of Westport, and she has 2 beautiful kids, and she came to me. She goes, well, you know, I want to introduce them to horses. So it depends on where someone lives or whatever. I usually know a few places to go start with the kids, but it's usually you want to get them someplace where they don't just put the saddle on the horse. You want them to go somewhere where they learn about how much it is to take care of a horse. So it really depends. Now I've helped start some people with that too. I've done that. But you know, we have a lot of nice places that, because teaching kids, you know, that's a whole craft in itself. It's a craft. You know, having done this so long, part of me feels like I explain almost quantum physics to people. So I have to make sure when I talk to young people that I don't talk above them, that I can talk to them. But they relate in a different way. But it's good if a parent comes to me and they say, I want to introduce my child to horses. One, I think it's a very beautiful thing emotionally for a child. And horses are different than dogs and cats. They're a farm animal, which requires a little bit more physical investment. And I like that. I like getting outside, get away from the computer and connect with nature. It's a way to connect. But I also would like them to know how much work it is. So I would suggest being somewhere where they have to brush the horse, have to pick their feet and do what they have to do. And usually a good age to start is around 8 years old or so.
We unfortunately are coming to an end. Will you come back?
Well, I would love to come back if you'd love to have me.
There are so many topics that we haven't even covered.
Yeah, I know. Well, I've been around a while. That's another good help.
Well, I'm going to be 70, so I've got some mileage on me.
Yes, that's right. And you know what? We have a little bit of wisdom to share, so I'd love to come back.
I would love to have you.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, this is episode 140 of Fur, Fins, and Feathers. Happy Easter, happy holidays for those of you who celebrate the Easter. And we'll see you soon on Fur, Fins, and Feathers. Thank you very much.